Hey there folks, here is for you, Langpanda. I teach you languages without the propaganda. Use associations and etymology. No more rote memorization, it stings like a bee. No more rote memorization, it sucks like a flea. You're getting so frustrated by your language course, just learning all the new words by brute force. Learn languages with me and you'll be a black belt language panda. Effectively and fun, no need for propaganda. Langpanda. Learn languages with me and you'll be a language panda. Langpanda. Learn languages with me and you'll be a black belt panda. No boring drills, no more blank stare. Turn words into stories, no more bleak despair. From Chile to Beijing, you'll chat with ease, smooth talking like a fragrant Chinese garden's breeze. Your old language course is not quite what it seems. A lot of rote memorization schemes. We don't need no education like hitting your head on a wall. Learn easily with pleasure, no more struggle at all. Learn with memo bridges and follow panda's call. Langpanda. Learn languages with me and you'll be a language master. Langpanda. Learn languages with me and you'll grasp your vocab faster.
Are you sick and tired of learning languages by brute force, memorizing of vocabulary? Then welcome to my new channel, Langpanda. Together we are going to explore which techniques are the best for you to work with. And we will go as practical as possible. We will use a lot of examples. So I'm really glad to have you here on my channel. I want to introduce myself a bit. My name is Ludwig, I'm from Germany. I'm kind of a hobby polyglot. I have been studying quite a few languages in the last decades. At the moment, I'm challenging myself with Mandarin Chinese. That's very interesting, super interesting, but also a lot of work. So I think I figured out up to now what really works in language learning and what doesn't. And of course, it's no secret that this by rote learning of vocabulary is the worst thing you can do, because you will forget too much in a very quick time. You're going to be frustrated and sooner or later you will give up. Fortunately, we have a lot of very effective techniques on hand which really should boost your language learning journey. So what are those techniques? First of all, it is learning with associations. It is what we call in German Eselsbrücke, so donkey's bridge, yeah, because like the donkey, it doesn't like water, so you need to build it a small bridge so that it can just pass the small river or whatever you have. And that's what we want to do with our memory. Yeah? Our brain loves connections. So we should never learn connectionless content. So that's why I would like to call this technique the memory bridge, because we help our memory and our brain to get in the right direction and to really learn something. The other technique that is very interesting is about etymology, so the history, where do words come from, and that's also super intriguing. Often you can find words in other languages that are related to words you already know, like the mother mother word, sister word, or just a distant cousin word. So this is also a very good thing to do. And don't get me wrong, even when using these techniques and all other techniques that are known to language learners, language learning is not going to be easy. I really hate reading those ads like get fluent in Spanish in 6 weeks. This is absolute rubbish and kind of a scam, you know. And the thing is, that also makes you frustrated. So you should know from the beginning it's a long journey, but with these methods it's going to be a fun journey. You know, people say it's not about arriving, it's about having a fun journey. And that's what we're gonna do. Getting much more effective. And so now let's dive in and start. So our first fundamental crucial question is, why is it not effective to learn vocabulary by brute force? Well, this is deeply rooted in how the world works, how evolution works, how we are constructed, you know. So if you think about it, our brain has a lot of things to process. So how does it cope with all the stuff we get to know every day, every hour? It's very fascinating. The brain just works with emotions, with what do we think is important or not. So we only remember things that are emotionally important to us. This is very important to know. So when we are just sitting in front of some vocabulary and trying to learn it, and we are like super unmotivated, that is not gonna help. Imagine the first example. We are talking about a man from Stone Age roaming around in his neighborhood in the forest, trying to find something to eat. And let's say this man comes back to the cave, and then his fellows ask him, so how many crows were there in the sky? Did you see 4 or 5 or whatever? So let's suppose crows are not important for the tribe, they're not a totem, and they fly high, you can hunt them, they're just irrelevant. So this man, even if he observed those crows for a moment during his walk, probably he is not going to remember the crows much. You know, it's just not relevant for him. But let's continue this thought and say, okay, this man finds a new place with tasty strawberries. Oh my god, this is a totally other story. So he's going to remember this place for a long time, so he can show to his fellow tribesmen, because he had a lot of great emotions eating those sweet strawberries. It even is important for the survival of his tribe, so it makes a lot of sense. And now let's get the last step and say, okay, he meets horrific cave bear, frightening him, he has to run away. And we all know from our own life, well, not with bear, but with other problems or with other shocks, they stay a long time. So probably until the end of his life, this man is never going to forget this memory. Yeah, like very vividly, what did the bear do? Exactly, what did I do? How could I escape? And it's also important, yeah, if he comes back to that place, that he always remembers, oh, this is a place dangerous, potentially dangerous with bears. So our brain is literally made from connections called synapses. It works with connections, it loves connections, so we have to give to our brain what our brain wants. So let's get in and do a practical example for that. We're using just a random language that also I have never studied. It's said to be very hard, Finnish, yeah. And in Finnish, excuse my pronunciation, the word helppo means easy. Something is easy, not difficult. So no connection between helppo and difficult, you know. But now we let our magic work. We say, okay, helppo is really so similar to English to help. And this story makes a lot of sense and it triggers a lot of beautiful emotions. You see, you can imagine somebody is really toiling under a heavy load and sweating and moaning, it's too much for him, and then a lot of people come and join him, and together this load gets really, really easy to carry. And now I can assure you that now that you have heard that, you will remember this Finnish word much easier than if you had tried to learn it just by rote. And science is very clear about that. It helps a lot. You know, you can take a lot of different studies. They all will say that the rate of forgetting words is much steeper when you just try to do learning by rote. And if you use all the techniques, also repeating constantly with fun, with the method we're talking about, then the curve is much flatter, you know? And that's what we should really use. Let's take an example, because I want to show you that it is not important if the association we use is actually linguistically founded. Know that the connection is just in our mind. Let's say you are learning Spanish and you are trying to learn the word for heart, corazón. So corazón and heart, no obvious connection between them. So what we can do is find another word. Yeah. Okay. Before we go to the free association, of course, there are words that really linguistically proven are connected with this in the English language. Let's think about cordially, yeah, or cardiac. So if you make this connection, great, yeah, then it is extremely good connection, because it is really something that is existing, and this can be really strong. Oh yeah, there's really that connection, you know. And we are talking about how to find those etymologies and cognates in another video, more so roughly. But let me tell you one more example, yeah. So what when you want to learn the word, the Spanish word actor? Yeah, very easy. You don't need anything. You don't need any effort to do that, because it's quite the same, just the pronunciation is a bit different. Let's use another example also with English and Spanish. So let's say you want to learn the Spanish verb mirar, to watch, to look at something. So is there something in English? Let's think. Oh yeah, there's a very beautiful, very interesting connection. And this connection would be with the English word mirror. You know, that is something you look at. And this is actually linguistically true. So amazing when you can make those connections. And I will also show you in another video what helps us to find those connections easily. But let's go back to finding like a free connection that is not rooted in science. So for example, we can think, the English word for corn, you know, but growing on the fields. Corn, it is just quite similar to corazon. So let's make a very small, quick story about that. You know, you just see a corn that is shaped like a heart and it looks very tasty. You already want to snack it and try to use all your senses. Yeah, you can smell this beautiful corn smell and you can feel how it is shaped like a heart, and then in no time you have a great anchor in your memory, a great memory bridge, and you will be able to really get this word in your long-term memory. So the great news is these kind of connections, associations, they work for every language. It does not matter what your mother tongue is. It doesn't matter how many languages you already know. Kind of doesn't matter very much if the language you learn is close to the language you speak already. You always can use those as free associations. Yeah, it's when the language is not related, of course, you can less use the etymology, word history, word family part, but free associations are always possible. So let's dive into that free association memory bridge method with another example. Let's say you want to learn Norwegian and you're going to learn the word for beautiful, which is also, please, I did never learn Norwegian, so please do not be afraid of my pronunciation. And okay, vacker, what do we know there in English? And I found there is an American slang word, whack, meaning something like something or somebody is crazy. And we can build a small story about that very quickly. So let's think about a person that is very beautiful and also a bit crazy. It's really whack, yeah? So, and again, use all your emotions. Perhaps you know a person like that in real life, or you just make something up in your mind, but also perhaps you can imagine that there is a very beautiful girl, but her laugh is so crazy, so whack. Though everything that helps you, use all your senses. So this is very important. And by the way, for all German speakers, it's even easier because we have a really related word, and that is wacker in German. It's an old word, but it means something like brave. Yeah. Of course, we also would have to establish a connection. One is brave, one is beautiful, but I think that's quite easy. It is just really great how that helps us. Now, Norwegian is a Northern Germanic language, so it is really close to English and German, which are Western Germanic languages. But as I told you, for the free associations, it doesn't matter. And in order to prove that, let me bring you an example from Chinese Mandarin. Probably some of you already know it, but you know hello in Mandarin is ni hao. And obviously there is no scientific linguistical connection between those two words like hello and ni hao. By the way, it means literally, it means you good. Yeah. And so what can we do? Yeah. What we can do in English is, what is similar to ni? English need. And what is similar to how is even easier. Like the first word that pops up immediately in our minds is how. How are you? Yeah. So it's very close to a greeting. And then we can, for example, make a connection in our mind that, okay, yes, in America there's a new slang for the young people and they're saying, hey, ni hao. And then we have a fun way of combining this to a new great connection in our brain. And even if we never want to learn Chinese, we can start greeting our Chinese friends and neighbors with ni hao, because we never forget that it's like ni hao. Okay, so you see the method is really working great. I hope you understood how easy it is. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me in the comments. I will be very happy to help you. And also, talking about questions, I'm also going to do kind of Q&A for questions that I think could be very frequent questions for this topic. Question number 1. Is this method useful and feasible for every existing word? The answer is a clear no. Perhaps theoretically yes, if you do brainstorming for weeks or whatever, but that is not how you should use this method. It should really be quick. You know, we're wanting to fasten our language learning process, not halting it. So yes, it happens that you even think a bit more and you do not find anything usable. That's okay. Then use another technique. There are so many techniques out there how you can memorize words. And so even if 1 in 10 words you do the brute force learning, or kind of, yeah, then it's much better than do it in 100% of the time. So this is not a problem at all. Question number 2. Isn't it just easier, quicker, more straight off to use the by rote learning? Because you know you always need these small stories, you always need to think. Doesn't it slow down the whole process? Absolutely no. Of course, in the beginning, in some cases, you will be a bit slower in finding a good connection, a good memory bridge. This is normal. But very quickly, you get into this technique. You know, you always have to learn new methods. Yeah, it's not that you know it from second one. But I can tell you from my experience, it is quite easy for a lot of words. And with time you get so much experience that you can just rule it. So don't worry about that. Next question is, couldn't it be a problem that something gets stuck wrongly in your mind? For example, when we go back to our wacker, whack and beautiful, couldn't it be that you somehow get it into the wrong synapses, to put it like that, and that you think, I had some memory bridge, I'm not sure anymore, so I think wacker means something like crazy or mad. My answer is, that can happen, but it is not very frequent from my experience, and also it's not great harm. It's not going to cause World War III, because first of all, then if you're not sure, you can always look it up, and even if you say it wrong, 99% of the native speakers, they are still very happy that you learn their language, that you go the extra mile, and they will be so glad to correct you. So also don't worry about that. That's not going to really be an issue. Most of the time you establish this in your mind and then it is in your mind. But even if you forget, it's a great thing to review it. Yeah, that's what my connection was. And then you're back on track, and review is great. You never can do without review. And then you have your next review. So perfect. Next question is number 4. So what about if the writing or the pronunciation of my memory bridge word differentiates from the words pronunciation and spelling? Yeah, we can use the example of vakker again. So obviously there are 2 Ks in the Norwegian word, but in the English wag there's a CK. Similarly, also wag is with a sound and vakker is with the a sound or whatever, but it's not a sound. So isn't that confusing? Isn't that a big problem? Again, no. Like, you go already, let's say 90% of the way with this great method. It helps you to anchor this word in your memory, and then in my experience it's super easy just to get it right, and what is more, you also learn the rules of a language. And then I'm sure when you learn Norwegian, you learn, normally you have the double K in this case, or you don't even have the in this kind of word. So it does not hurt. And again, like I said before for the other question, even if it happens, then at least you said a word 90% right instead of forgetting it at all. And then you correct yourself, you get corrected, and then say, okay, it's not wecker, it's wacker. And then you got it. So perfect. And fifth and last question is, do I always have to remember that memory bridge? Isn't it also like slowing down my process when I say, okay, I want to say to somebody that he or she or it is beautiful in Norwegian? Do I always think about the language bridge? No, not at all. As soon as this connection is established, this memory bridge just retreats and you don't care about this memory trick again. So this was it about the Q's and A's, and in the last section of the video I want to give you some practical tips how to really effectively use this method. So my first tip would be, use all the vocabulary not only, let's say, normal word from your native language. Especially helpful have proven geographical names, personal names, and brand names. If you are struggling to find a specific association but you can't find it, why not using the first name of your friend or lover or whatever? Because the word sounds like Julia or Romeo or whatever. Or from a famous person, it sounds like Planck, whatever. And brand names obviously are great. You can make very great connections with that. Or also geographical names, whatever it can be the smallest village that sounds similar to a word you want to associate with, or far away. So this can be a very powerful advice. And secondly, also please don't only use your native language, but also all the foreign languages already. If you already know English and French and now you want to learn Polish, then great. You can also use all the French words to find equivalents in the Polish language or in any language you're going to learn. And that multiplies. When you know Polish and then you get over to, I don't know, Japanese, then you already have 3 languages at your hand that can help you with associations. And also don't underestimate the power of dialects. Fortunately, the time when dialects were frowned upon are kind of over, and a dialect is a whole language, a whole word for itself. So if you know 1 or more dialects and those dialect words are just very similar to the word you want to know, great, go for it. And third is also professional language. You know, we all know basically a common language, but then every profession has their special terms. So take that also to your advantage. Yeah, it's not necessary that you only use words that everybody knows. It's just that you have a connection to that word. You know exactly what it means and even have a kind of emotional connection with it. So then the third tip would be to get creative. As I told you, it doesn't always have to be 100% the same pronunciation, the same spelling. No, not at all. And I also told you in the question and answers that it will not really be a big problem in your language learning process. So the thing is, you just have to work with that what you find. You know, even if there's quite a difference between the word we want to learn and your memory bridge, go for it. Yeah. The only thing I wouldn't do personally, but this is also subjective, if like the first part of the word I use as a memory bridge is totally different, then I personally get confused. So I think at least the first 3-4 letters should be same or similar to the word you want to memorize, and then it can change, even be totally different. But again, find out what works for you. All of us are different. Then coming to tip number 4, dissect the word. If one word that you want to learn makes you struggling, you can find a good connection. And as an example, I have a German word. I took a longer one. It doesn't need to be always a longer one. You can even do that with short words, but for long words is especially useful. Okay, let's take Schifffahrt. It's like the German words are always very long, and Schifffahrt is just a shipping cruise. But okay, it kind of frightens you, it scares us, yes, that we dissect it. Oh, okay, there's Schiff in the beginning, and now it sounds totally easy. Yeah, you don't even have to look it up on the internet, that Schiff is very, very similar to ship. And then when we look closely at Fahrt, then we see, hey, it sounds like fair, Fahrt, fair. And then you just imagine how you are going to board a beautiful ship and you pay the fare, and then the cruise can start. And again, use all your senses, yeah, like feel the water, smell the salt in the air, whatever. And then you have this potentially hard German word already mastered. Okay, what is our next tip? Our next tip is be patient. As I told you, you cannot expect that you start this method today and then you know and find associative words for 90% of the words you want to learn. But I'm sure that you can, even as a beginner, find a lot of great associations. And as I said, for the words you don't find good memory bridges, then use another method that you like and work with the method, continue working with it, and very quickly you're going to be much more advanced using this technology. Also, I can't stress that enough. This is not about saying only this method works and all other methods don't work. Yeah, the brute force learning does not work well. It can also work when you don't have any other method working. But on the contrary, I say use the method I taught you and use all the other methods you know together. That is what makes language learning much easier. Not focusing only on one aspect of the method, but really as a rough approach. Like everything you know helps you. So also what is extremely important, and I can't stress that enough, are the emotionally strong associations. And here I give you my secret hint. It can even be offensive or kind of, oh, I would not like to say that out loud. Like, that's no problem, because this is only a technique for you yourself. Nobody's getting hurt from that. You don't have to say it loud, you don't have to write it down. It's just in your memory. So, for example, if you hated some special teacher at your school and her name or whatever reminds you of her or him is just helpful for memorizing a word, then go for it. It will not harm this person. He or she is already retired or whatever, and you're not going to tell anybody. So why do I tell you that? Because you shouldn't be afraid. It's always about the strong emotional connection. And when you get the connection with that kind of stuff, go for it. Yeah, if it's fun for you, go for it. But of course, don't force yourself. If you say, oh no, that isn't for me, I don't want to hurt people even thinking like that. Or what is even more important, if you think, oh, this connection somehow triggers me in a very negative way, I don't want to think about the topic always when I memorize this word, then leave it. Yeah. And the good news is there are so many associations you can build with positive emotions, with love, with friendship, with beauty. So whatever works for you, it's very, very subjective. Okay, then our last tip is really customize your language learning technique, your memorial bridges to your subjective feelings. You know, of course, it can be quite convenient to borrow already established language bridges from sources like the internet or from friends or whatever, but they have to fit to your life, to your interests. I stress it again, you need to make an emotional connection. So let's take an example from geography. Let's say you tried hard to find a memory bridge, but nothing simple came to your mind, and then say, oh wow, it sounds like the capital of Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou. Yeah, it just helps me to remember a certain word. Then go for it. If you are a geography freak, if you love geography, then probably you know Ouagadougou because it was one of the most interesting sounding capitals in the world. But if you don't like geography, if you have never heard about Ouagadougou or even Burkina Faso, then it does not help you. Go for something else. Go for something that touches your emotions, that is subjectively connected with you, and that really helps you to make this emotional connection. So this was my last tip for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. In future videos I'm going to cover a lot of different other topics in depth. For example, how can you work with etymology? Which tools do we have in the internet to find etymologies in seconds? And much more, like what is the difference between using this method for closely related language? What works better when the language you want to learn is not at all related to the languages you speak already? Also, we can talk about how can you memorize characters when you're learning Chinese or Japanese. And we can just take a closer look at certain languages. For example, what does work best for Spanish? What does work best for Korean? Whatever. Like, also please tell me in the comments what you would like to hear, what you are interested in most. And yeah, please subscribe for all the new content. And I'm very happy you watched the video to the end. And I'm wishing you a very great and successful